Right. If anybody on here is not part of the community itself, and you're just getting this through Kevin's email, scan the code and you'll get straight to the community of practice on the website there. Is everybody part of this or not already?
Yes.
Yes.
Part of it, yeah.
Perfect. Well, that's all we'd like to hear. Right. Agenda today. Quick energizer. We're going to go into what is DABL. When we look at how it's used for a valuable problem statement, the DABL how-to, an example, and then some key takeaways, right? Going to be how we're going to approach this. If you have a question, shout up, right? It's, there's what, 6 of us here, and me, Kevin, and Lauren make up 3 of them, right? So just shout out, and we'll go from there. Right, like I said, participation. Based on the fact that this is all about discovery and understanding more, I want to know about something in your life that would be better if you understood more about it. So come off mute, give me an answer. Who wants to go first?
I don't mind going first.
Yep.
Like my savings. I just have all my savings in a very low interest savings account and I don't know what to do with it. And I know I should look at investing it, but then I'm like, well, I don't want to lose my money. So I think I wish I understood more about stocks and shares ISAs.
Interesting. That's a good one. I like that.
I was also going to say finances and pensions.
Yes,
So.
I'm going through that at the minute as well. That's an interesting one. And is anybody else on the call? I can't see a few of you, so.
I would say like women's health is a big one for me. It's very complicated. It's not something we were taught a lot about, but I feel like my life would be a lot better if I understood it a bit more.
Nice. Lauren, I'll ask you as well since you're sitting there.
Yeah, I feel like mine's a wee bit of a random one. So I tried bouldering for the first time last night of like rock climbing, and I feel like it would be so much better if I understood more about it because my knowledge with it is like next to zero. So if I just understood like the technique, the equipment, the sort of like climbing grades that they have, I feel like it would just be much better. So yeah.
I like that. Kevin, I'm going to ask you since there's only 7 of us on the call as well.
Well, Lauren's broken the seal on pastimes, hasn't she? You know what my answer is, Matt? Golf. I started playing golf 2 weeks ago. And sometimes I'm incredible and sometimes I'm terrible, and I'd like to know why that was.
Yeah.
If it makes you feel better, my dad's been playing for probably like 40 years, and he says the same thing every day.
I mean, I'd rather there was some hope for him, to be honest, but you've really nailed it in the coffin there, haven't you? 40 years of misery.
Well, there's the highs, but there's also the lows.
Oh, there's a stupid amount of lows in golf. It's a frustrating game for sure. Right, what is DABL? Has anybody heard of this before? Got head shakes? No. Excellent. This is going to be hopefully a good session for you then. DABL is Discovery Alpha Beta Live, and it's a way of navigating through product management instead of going for that big bang approach, right? The concept is we're trying to understand, we're trying to do different tests to look at fit of the product and solution, everything else, and then obviously get to live. I'm guessing that you've probably heard of some of this before in terms of discovery, but have you had, I suppose, any experience of things that aren't just a big bang tech release? And what does that look like for you in your roles?
Yeah, we do lots of betas for new functionality in my job. So normally just have like champion customers who express an interest, and we give versions to them, and then we try collate feedback. Alpha's slightly less because I think that's very, very scaled back. They're trying to launch a new product at the moment that they're going to do an alpha with, but my experience is more so on the beta side.
Interesting that you don't use alpha so much when you could probably use it for some of the features and things like that to test out before they go in. So that again could be something to think about as you go forward with this. Who else wants to comment on this?
For me, a lot of the products we use are third party. So very often the alpha and the beta aren't things that we can get involved with. But I guess similar to what Fern just mentioned in the sense that if a new feature gets released, small groups of users will kind of test that, iterate and give feedback on it, and that will be passed back. But usually for me, it's discovery and then maybe a little end of the beta and then live.
Straight to
so
live.
Not much alpha, yeah.
Yeah. And I'll try and explain one way I actually use some of this in terms of the first part of it anyway, and what the result I got from it was in terms of using sort of big third parties as well. So anybody else, what's your use or understanding of some of these areas? Who else is on mute? Jesse, have you?
I've not really come across this in my role too much, to be honest, so excited to learn more.
Perfect. In that case, let's have a look at this. One of the things that we believe in terms of that mindset at Ascend is that clear writing gives poor thinking nowhere to hide. And this is part of that process of testing that out and trying to refine that early stage in terms of that discovery and the alpha. Like I said there, generally people do a bit of discovery and go straight to live. But have you interpreted that right? Do you truly know? Is it written in a way that you've clarified assumptions, tested them out, got rid of the bad areas, that type of thing? So keep a hold of that, especially if you're somebody who's involved in that requirements or the user story or feature level. Is it ambiguous? Do you need to clarify some things? How can you try and prove some of that, or say go after your knowns and unknowns in terms of risks and everything else? Does this hit home with anybody about the start of this in terms of there's an idea, whether that's for a big launch or whether it's for a smaller feature or whatever it is, but that I've got to do something and I'm meant to have exactly what it's going to do, and then suddenly we're going to go live. It's not normally a linear approach, right? We as product people normally have a lot of questions there, and that's what this is portraying, the fact that we can be all over with one simple idea. And we use DABL to try and streamline that and start to understand more in this problem space here around that uncertainty. So how can we get to the point of bringing that, like it says, to a point of focus to be able to go live and know that we're on the right track and course correct along using DABL to actually, as I say, work some of those bits out and get us onto a true vision and something that the customers actually want. Any questions so far? Nope. Has anybody seen this type of diagram before? So if that is the case, because I'm seeing some nods, Danny, you were nodding away there. Tell me how you've used that. Have you used it, or has it just been, this is theory, we've never actually taken it back to use in a product world? Or
definitely just theory that I've been learning as part of my digital product management apprenticeship. Haven't had the opportunity to apply it into practice yet, but it all makes sense theoretically.
Yep. One of the things we do is try and bury this into ways of working, right? So I've used it as in terms of like a Three Amigos session and starting to try and question this in terms of right down to refinement, right? I'm checking this all the time through that discovery, through the testing of alpha, beta, live, but through those sessions you would have as a product person to try and understand that, is it truly desirable, right? Just because somebody writes it down doesn't mean that that is truly desirable. And obviously you've got your problem statement, you're trying to get to that root cause, and that's where this DABL side of things comes in. Feasibility, most things are feasible, but truly are they feasible in the constraints that you have, right? We know that in our work environment, there might be a constraint based off the data you can get from somewhere, a vendor here, I don't know, an integration there. So yes, in an ideal world, that is quite a big circle, but in the confines of what we do in product management and within our own companies, that gets a lot smaller quite quickly. The other one is, should we do it right? Going back to the feasibility, it might cost an absolute fortune to do that, and your business outcome might nudge by 0.1%. Now, if you've got billions of people using something, that might be a big return on that, even at a point something percent. But if you're looking at going, it only moves the needle for one person for once a year, you need to be going really does that weigh the time, effort, and everything else just because it's still desirable? Can I get around that another way? And that's where we're starting to look at that discovery and alpha side of things. Is there an easier way of doing that? Does that make sense for people? Could you see yourself applying this in your day jobs? Obviously, we just talked, there's a theory there, right? But can you see where you might be able to get this in and start asking those questions that line into really, should we do it? Can we do it? And do they truly want it along that product process?
It's interesting, this one, because looking at it, thinking this is what I would do as I'm creating like features, epics, things like that, where it's like, okay, customer feedback, is this actually desirable? Can we do this in terms of getting that information, viability, like, okay, should we do this? And it's almost that early stage that we do, but maybe not in this exact format.
Yeah, and I mean, I would also possibly challenge the early stage, right? It's a question that I try and have the teams we work with ask on all the way through that, because as you are learning more about the problem and solution fit space, I'm still questioning, should we be doing it? Is this still right based off, again, there might be a constraint in that's changed the dynamic of that. Is it still desirable in the format we might be able to get it there? So I would be asking yourself this all the time, even at the point of maybe testing, right? Is it, do the results look like what we expect them to? And if not, why put something out that's a poor feature, epic, whatever that is, if it's not getting you to where you thought it was going to be? And it's about that, we saw the sort of chart before, but that ambiguous nature to knowing more. At any point in that, if any of these go out the way and you're really not going to deliver the value, why are you putting it live as a product person? And I've had that conversation this morning with a client, right? The difference for me is, one is a service desk, you're just doing it because you've got a...
And I have yeah.
Go on. I think one of our internet stopped, so go for it.
Yeah. No, I was going to say, my experience of about 7 or 8 years in product management is that you end up with leaders saying, should we do this? Don't care, we're going to do this. And that's been a really, that's been actually the biggest problem, where, I've gone, I don't think this is actually valuable. And they're going, well, we have to do this. And you're going, and so sometimes the pushbacks are not what you expect them to be. There's not that free channel to actually say, well, I don't think we should do this, because you get that feedback of, you're going to. Oh, am I?
And that goes back, I think we had conversations the last time about things like highest paid person's opinion and data-led decision making. This helps with that, right? Because what we're trying to do at every stage of that DABL process is understand more about, say, the problem, the supporting data for that, in terms of, is it truly something to solve, or is it something that somebody would like to do, because they're two very different things. That helps us prioritize as well. We can then again build, say, prototypes and everything else in alpha and beta to test that out and go, we thought this is a problem, but actually our customer base hasn't interacted with that at all. So should we still be doing it? And then that conversation changes in terms of dynamics, because it's no longer about the feeling of things. It's about what the data is leading us to do at that point in time, right? Does that make sense to people? Got nods. Right. Give me 2 minutes. It's, for some reason, there we go. What does this look like in reality? I'll talk about this, and then I'll try and talk about where I used the first part of this process and what the outcome was for that. So like I said, discovery, right? You've got that, take the value proposition, whether that's a massive one or a feature, take your pick, whatever that is, right? But what we're trying to do is, we feel like there's something, we're sensing that, we're trying to do something about it and respond with a, which way do we go with this? Do we move forward a step? Do we not, right? The big thing there is define the problem. And this is where we're truly trying to get into that. And I think, I don't know about your experience, but as a product person, I think that's still overlooked in a lot of places. It's just, we have a line in a user story and we haven't truly got to the actual problem of that. Are we putting a sticking plaster over it, or could we go and solve the true root cause of it somewhere? So starting to dig into that a bit. Obviously from that, we start to layer in the other circles in the element of that Venn diagram. But the alpha experiments, and I mean, I've got Lauren here. Lauren is the expert in this area. But I think far too many times people jump to, they want a high fidelity, clickable prototype for this that's got all the bells and whistles, right? That to me is not an alpha experiment. That is, you're way down the line already there, right? What is the dirtiest, quickest way you can get the ability to test this problem statement out with a customer segment, a set of users, whatever that is, to try and understand whether the thing that you think is happening, you have a fit for in terms of solution? Again, there's a bit there that says launch it quickly. The other bit we see is people do experiments and they take 3 to 6 months to do them. They're on the same sort of track as something else. That time is ridiculousness. We're trying to do something that is not a perfect solution, but we're trying to get some early direction about what we should be doing next, and that's what we're looking at there. I like the bit as well that says revise rapidly, right? If we learn something, don't just go ahead with that alpha in its current format. If that really changes direction, go take a step back, redo it, and then go back out and get the validation based off that. Has that hit the mark? Yes or no, right? There's a couple of things we can do, and I think we drop into later, but things like your test and learn cards, which we'll have a look at a little bit later. You had a hypothesis, did it hit it, yes or no, based off what you're trying to do. The beta experiments, right? Now, this could be anything for me from basic clickable prototype to something that honestly looks like the program or product itself, to even mini MVPs, right? I think too often as well we get to MVPs like they're going to be the final live solution. They are still testing things, and MVPs can be dropped, except too often in, well, enterprises, they don't, right? The MVP is suddenly like version 10 of something because it gets too big, right? And again, I don't know whether anybody's got experience of that, but as soon as somebody says MVP, we've now got a full-blown solution, and they're not the same things. We're still trying to learn from that. But again, we're trying to look at that market fit there, right? In terms of when you've got that segmentation, does it truly fit within that? Will somebody purchase it? Will they buy into that? Whatever that looks like, whether it's free or paid, are you getting the way you think with that? The one we said there, right? We talked about how things feel, but what do the actual data points say from the measurements that we've looked at based off our test and our learning from that? And again, every step of the way, we're going around iterations of this, whether it's a tiny change because we've got some feedback and a box should be in a different place or a flow should be different, to a sizable step change where we drop back into an alpha to retest a complete different look to go again, right? And then obviously the whole live and turn that into reality, right? I think generally a lot of the people we work with do try and skip from a light discovery to a live and then wonder why it hasn't necessarily hit the targets, or they don't know what they were trying to hit, or it hasn't been adopted. And again, I don't know whether you see any of that in your company, whether it's a user story or a feature, but yeah, we need this, and then it's never used. That to me, we could get round some of that with doing some of these early tests through the DABL life cycle there. Any questions on that bit? No? Are we following? Are we too hot? Are we bored? You think, Matt, I'm done already? So we're all very quiet today. Where did this fair? I'll keep going then. In reality, I used this in one of our old clients. I had the classic hippo side of things come down. We're going to do this. We're going to basically build this sub product of the main product because the customers want it. And my bit was why. So we started off on that discovery bit. Why do they want it? When they do this, it has to do that. They think it'll sell God knows how many licenses. And I heard this rumbling for a while, and then people like factoring it in to the point that we're going to actually bring a team in at a sizable cost every month to build this for 6 to 9 months, right? That's where they got to. My bit was let's run an experiment. Drafted the experiment card, and they're like, oh, we can't do this. It's data science. You need a front end. I got data science to spit out an Excel spreadsheet with the model-based decisions in it, and I went and put that in front of 10 customers, 10 of their biggest customers, and each one of them came back and said, this is zero improvement on the Excel spreadsheet that we do manually. And that's what they were going to do. So it would have had a nice UI on top of it, but the model itself, which is what we were trying to find as a product market fit, had zero value to the customers. That saved probably 400,000 to 600,000 maybe in time and effort, and it would have just been built. And we didn't go past an alpha experiment. And that's the whole point. You might not get to the end of this. There was clear evidence immediately from big customers who were going to be buying this in terms of that customer segment that this would go no further. We dropped it. So then now I don't have that cost and I can focus on the things that do add value to the customer, which was the more dynamic solution that we had. Does that bring that to life a bit in terms of using this and the benefits of that? I do like this quote. Has people seen this before?
No, but it's so true.
Yeah, right. And again, tell me your experience here, right? But you sit in product long enough, and what you get is not a request based off a problem. You get them saying, I want this solution. And what we're trying to do, step back from that and go back to try and understand what we're doing and what problem we're actually trying to address, the root cause and everything else, and what the outcome is we're trying to define from that. And it's part of spend more time. If you think about the whole product end to end, spend more time on the left of that journey than the right of that journey. Where at the minute, and again, if you work in these product teams, you might find that a lot of people, it's more, oh, we coded this, we developed that, congratulations, but it's not about coding, right? That is one part of this overall product end to end. I say, as product people, depending on what your role is, spend more time trying to really address and drill down on those things, challenge what is coming through this end, because that will speed up what goes out that end and it'll create more business value as well. And it stops us being busy, just being busy. We're then busy adding value to our customers and organization. Samantha, you have a question.
I was going to say I've got a perfect example for this one. Artificial intelligence. Let's just do AI.
Doesn't matter what the question or the problem is, right? The answer is AI.
Nope, exactly. In fact, I'm writing a presentation on that at the precise moment.
Yeah.
Because I've been researching quantum computing for the past year, and so wanted to say let's not let that go the same way as AI, because what I ended up doing was forget what the question was. Here's the solution.
Yeah.
And we never actually learnt what AI could actually do for an organization, because people came in and just said, we are going to do this. And you went, well, what's the problem we're going to solve? I don't care. Whatever it is, do it.
Yep.
And that completely broke everything that you've been talking about.
And I think it happens. I mean, I remember that certainly from when RPA came in, robotic process automation. That was the answer to all our problems. Yet we didn't look at, we either didn't have the data or the process wasn't there to automate, but that was the solution. It's the same sort of thing. But we have set up a community practice in our clients where we're still underpinning this with good product management. Start with the problem, start and discover, go and do an alpha about that. Because I don't need necessarily the AI. Can I get an alpha that's got all things hanging off it and then run the AI through it afterwards? Fern.
I had an unrelated question, but I had a similar thing in my company where they were like, we've given everyone a Claude seat. Let us know what your use cases are. So shouldn't we have figured that out first? But I had a question just about like the alpha process and like, I don't know if anyone has this, but I think in my company, like the sales and CS teams get quite worried about putting things in front of customers that aren't like fully formed or fully realized, which I think you described the alpha as like quick and dirty. Yeah. How would you kind of reassure them? I don't think the customers would be too bothered because they like to be involved, but how would you reassure sales that it's not that we're putting like not formed product ideas in front of them? It's like experimentation and it's useful.
So take a step back, right? Your alpha will have come from a problem statement and discovery. So what I'll be looking at there is if we ran some sort of set of customer interviews or some sort of feedback mechanism, like a form or something like that, you could go back and go, all right, we want to try this alpha with these customers. And you say, this is here because you as this type of customer raised these problem areas. What I want to do is test a very quick, like, I wouldn't call it an alpha, but a very quick experiment with you just to see whether we have the understanding right and whether this is aligning with where you would like this to go as a customer and the benefit you would get out of it. Because we're trying to hear your voice, right? One of the good companies that does this, I don't know if anybody banks from Monzo, but they are constantly sending out the discovery bit about, if you had this, would you take one of our mortgages? Would you do this? What about that? Then you see them start to launch some of these things in a beta to try and try it out for a set number of people, right? They do that and they're getting responses all the time. I think the other thing, you've got to be able to say, I came to you as a customer, you said, this was actually rubbish, I think it should be this, and then go back to them. Because if you ask a customer for something and then keep asking and never do anything with it, they don't feel valued or heard. Where if you go, oh, by the way, remember when you filled this in, we think that this was one of your problem statements. Does that resonate with you? Well, right, let's test this out because we want to try and solve that for you. They're going to be bought into this and going to want to try and do something. And then if they see the beta to the live, they're going like, oh man, I can raise something on this and get something done about this area that's really valuable to me. So I think it's about a narrative and a storytelling as well as the functional bits of DABL. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, that does. Thank you.
Perfect. Samantha, over to you.
I was going to add to that and just say that the people who are asking you, the ones who you demo it to, the internal customer team, then you work with them to demo that to the customer if your customer is wanting a demo. So they then help shape that demo. So it becomes a lot more positioned in a way that the customer won't get frightened, because they're the ones who've been dealing directly with them. If your customers aren't the actual end customers, so you're not actually having those conversations with them in the first place, then your customer almost becomes the internal customer, and therefore they need to help shape that and frame that right with the external. It depends how big the company is and whether you're directly working with the customer. It sounds like you've got a person in between. They need to be involved in that.
Yeah, and I think just building on that, for me, it's in a salesperson's interest to try and do something for the customer, right? Because at a certain point, there's going to be retention there. If I'm listening to my customer and feeding that back to my product team is trying to work with the customer to get that right for them, they're more likely to stay with me as a business than somebody who's putting in stuff and then never has anything. They will leave. Where that conversation with a salesperson or an account manager would be, look, you had these problems at the start of the year. We've moved the needle on that as a business, as a product. This is why we're valuable to you as well. So I think it helps create a narrative for them from a personal viewpoint of their outcomes that they're trying to achieve as well. Right. How does one dabble with this? I think the bit at the top, right, is the recurring theme for all this. We're trying to find the fitness of that across this entire end-to-end, right? And I think I answered some of this in the first bit, but we're starting with the insight, right? You're not starting with live, which is sometimes where we seem to jump. Well, we've got this solution, we're going to go. We're starting with trying to understand our customers. It goes back to good product management skills, right? This is a mechanism for that, but you still have to put those things in place. Be inquisitive, try and drill down to find that. We had the conversation before about the feeling of things which people come up with in business. I feel like this is not working. It might feel that way, right? But that's not the case. It's the same about the messaging and the data. Governments have that problem, right? People feel one way, but the data might say something else. So what data have you got to support that? To be able to storytell back to them, right? And I think that's one of the things. There was a couple of us from Ascend went to the Mind the Product conference in London the other week. And that was one of the big things we got, rather than AI and everything else. Storytelling and how you put things across and how you back that up as a real skill as a product manager or within that product space, whether that's a BA, P, or whatever that is. And that goes back to stakeholder, right? that insight, how do you tell them? How do you get their feedback? How do you build that into that overall case of why you're starting this value statement, this feature, whatever that looks like at this point? We're starting it because of X, Y, and Z, and this is what we think. I always start, once I've got that discovery side of things, I always start in a matrix, and there's different ways to look at it. This is based off various models like business model, lean canvas, and things like that, of how it's split into desirability, feasibility, viability. But I like to start with a matrix of knowns and unknowns, where your riskiest assumption or problem is in the top right corner. So I think Dropbox did this, and that Dropbox is obviously an older reference these days, right? But they went after the problem statement of the tech didn't support at the time, because they knew if they didn't get over that problem to go and explore, they had nothing. So I would encourage you to look, when you get a bigger feature through, what is the biggest thing that's going to stop that? Is it, that could be everything from capacity to a technical challenge to, do we really think that's desirable across the wider customer base or segmentation? Do we have a skill set? Take your pick, but go after that one first. Because if you don't, and you go after something in the middle, you'll go down this route, you'll think you're live, and then suddenly your problem will hit you. So always start with that riskiest one first. Does that make sense to people? Yes, no, yeah. I'm going to let these packs obviously go out as well, and they get posted online. I've purposely picked these because there's some of the tools you can use to help in these areas. You might be familiar with some and not others, but again, what are we using for discovery, right? So that product canvas, the lean canvas, right? I really quite like, again, if you're storytelling to the stakeholder bit, what are we trying to do? What's the problem? What potential solutions you have, all on one page, being able to tell that. What's a customer segment, benefits, problem statements? It's all there in one simple digestible area that we can then test from. I like customer profiling, right? What is my main problem statement there, and what is the gain I get from that? Now, a gain is not a satisfactory outcome. So if I look at, I came across one where they had a big problem with out of stock items and low stock, right? A gain is not having stock. That's a basic expectation. The gain is now being able to go into a different market because I've got the stock to be able to do that. That is the gain from that. Does that bit make sense as well when you look at the customers and profiles and jobs we've done? Has anybody used customer journeys and that type of asset and workshop before?
Yes.
Because for me, I
Yes,
think that's a
very
really
much so.
powerful visualization, right? Especially when you start to see those unhappy faces, they're the things you can start and go after as part of the, let's dig into that more. Let's try and get your alphas out there. And I think, Fern, for you, that's the sort of thing before, when you go into your salespeople, go, there's these points where these customers have got problems. Can you help me find them so we can go and see if we can solve their problem in these areas to allow them to upgrade to this next subscription or whatever else that is? Obviously, you've got things like your competitor analysis. That's possibly getting easier these days with AI, because you don't have to put so much into that. You can write the query that's probably going to do it behind the scenes and get you information about that. Opportunity solution tree, I always like, because it steps you through in a logical sense, and you can start and go down that. And design sprints, right? That is something that we use. Like, Lauren is our expert in that, so she will help basically run that design sprint where we have the idea, and within days or potentially hours, we have something that is prototype quickly to get that feedback loop in and start and go, right, there's an alpha here. While we're assessing that, we can go and start and create maybe a clickable beta prototype that's a high fidelity. Let's see what we're getting off that. And it's something to maybe have a think about, because when we've done it, the value of that, the business has been huge. So it's about getting people together in one room, for example. And what we've seen is, more than anything, it's reduced lead times by 6 to 9 months, right? Because everybody's there and the feedback is instantaneous, and then you can tweak the alpha or beta straight away to then get more feedback. And Lauren, I don't know whether you want to add anything there based off your experience, because I say you're the person who's actually been through this.
Yeah, I mean, I would just like to highlight as well, like having it in person is always better. Like I've sort of done them online and in person, but just getting everyone into the room is so much easier, getting your feedback and everything. And yeah, we just definitely do that. And like we always do like the no laptop time as well. Everyone puts their laptops away. Everyone's just like super focused and yeah, no, they're great.
And I think start with a pen and paper, right? We had this conversation the other day. You can draw some of these things out in boxes, right? Start there. Don't worry about we don't have Figma. Let's
Yeah.
see how we can get that understanding down because picture paints 1,000 words, right?
Yeah, no, I'm a big fan of the paper as well. I feel like
Yeah.
you always have to use like the really thick pens as well because people always get into like the detail even whenever they are drawn. So we're always like, right, use your thick pens, do
Yeah.
like as little detail as possible and just get it down to the bare bones of it.
I like that. That's a good tip. We talked about the
Do you use
alpha.
Vocablo?
What was that? Sorry.
I was saying, do you use Vocablo, which is a really the thick pens, as you said? I learned how to do that as a product manager. Oh my gosh, the customer journeys, the drawing it out. When you grab hold of your pen and then tell you something's wrong, it's like finally you see it, you get it. It's really exciting.
But it is,
So
it's bringing
agreed.
it to life, right? That picture is better than any requirements doc or user story or feature you can have because somebody can go, that's not what I meant at all. This is what I meant. And then you can get to that stage quickly. I talked before when we moved to alphas and things like that, the test and learn side of this. Put it out in black and white what you think in terms of hypothesis, how you're actually going to test this, not, we'll do a bit here, we'll do some there. Write out the stages and like a true scientific experiment. Look at how you're going to measure it, right? Again, trying to stop that, I feel like this should keep going, I should get another £1,000,000 to do this. Well, did it hit any of those, right? What was the success criteria? And then you move to the right hand side. Truly, what did we learn from that? And at the point of that, it's do you stop it? Do you pivot? Or do you do something completely different, right? That's what we're trying to do from it. We talked about metrics and things, right? In some areas, you've got leading and lagging metrics. So, what's telling us at the start that we still believe that that's the right outcome? Where some things I've worked on in the past are linked to things like uh, long sort of farmer experiments and trials and everything like that, you don't get the lagging data for maybe 5 and 10 years. So you need to find some leading metrics that say, I'm heading in the right direction to try and solve this problem. We talked about MVPs and things like that before. And I think people try and build the car, try and build the wheel, right? As your experiment and your alpha and your beta along that process. Don't try and build a car, because then your MVP becomes a fully fledged thing that's got SSO and 10 integrations and everything else, right? You want something quick and dirty that you can actually experiment with. A/B testing. Does anybody do this? Because sometimes it's a technology constraint. Sometimes you're not set up right to do it. But one thing I see is we test and we go with one option. Well, actually, there might be more than one option, right? So we want to explore that a bit. So has anybody tried this and got any good results from it? Or do we just skip to, we tested something and it's fine?
My product doesn't really lend itself to that. It's like an offline deployment, so you hand it to a customer and then it's in their internal estate. But I know the website team do trial it, particularly for like campaigns. There's more help done on the marketing side, but I think they do kind of what you described. They have two options and then they go, great, this one got better hits. That's the one we're going to do.
Nice. Samantha?
I was thinking similar around, I think it works really well with like direct customer facing products, especially kind of communication web-based. It works really well. Whereas if you've got it as a back end, like, oh, did integration work? Did that integration work? It's like, well, we had two choices, APIs and APIs, and that's what we're going with. So, there are certain products that don't lean stuff towards.
But the API is just the vessel, right? What if it was within that?
Yes.
You have 2 countries in Europe where you go and test a different set of data points within it to get a different answer to the other ones and see where it is, right? That's kind of the A/B testing you can still do in the back end. That what are those data structures look like? But again, right, your architecture's got to be able to support being able to split your customers by a certain way to turn it on for them and not them, which is normally the problem space that we find ourselves in.
Agreed.
What else we got? One of the things I have used here is, I mean, we didn't use remote. We brought people in and did UX testing with eye tracking and everything else, which was really intriguing because people told us one thing and the eyes and data suggested another thing. So I remember distinctly somebody saying, "Oh, I couldn't find that," and the eye dot never moved off the actual thing, which wasn't just in the middle, it was down at a portion of the screen that had to find it. It's like, well, you're telling me what you want to tell me. Your actions tell me something different that you did find that. I talked about that, but your high risk and your unknown assumptions, right? Go after them first because they will be the thing that will put any experiment in the bin if you don't get them right or you haven't adjusted for them or taken them into account or dealt with them right. And again, we're talking product market fit here. We are obviously the best product managers ever, but that doesn't mean I've necessarily got everything right with that, and some things might miss. So we want to test that after we spent 500 million on this, before we get that far, that the market is actually there for it. They do work well with this and well received features, enhancements, take your pick, whatever that is, right? But we are still testing that based off various different addressable markets, right? It might not be your whole one, you might be down to a subsection in an area, but will it do what you want, right? Again, measure the outcome, right? It's all about the data behind it. Should we go to the next stage, yes or no? What makes us think that? That's when you can have conversations with your stakeholders and your finance people being like, I want another £1 million because we are this far along, and overwhelmingly 90% of the people would do this because of X, Y, and Z. Any questions on that bit so far? Danny, is this all make sense? Yeah. Still hot? No.
I was bringing some memories, and it's very important knowing when we are gonna be adjusting after being in a testing process, because calling from my different experiences testing hardware, testing software. So when we are planning to launch a new product and we are gonna be working in the design for manufacturing in my experience. So sometimes we spend 6 months testing, and we are still trying to fix some problems when problems that supposed to be detected at the beginning of the testing. So review and adjust tactics are important.
I don't know if it's my Wi-Fi, but I caught different bits of that. I didn't catch it all. I think we're saying the review, test, pivot sort of thing is really important. And correct me if I'm wrong there, but that is why DABL works really well, Pi, because it allows us to course correct before we've made a bad decision, spent a lot of time and effort and money, and not got the results we want.
Yes, it's that's the key point. So that we are using the resources effectively, and here's when we start to spending money, and there's money that we need to spend if we are thinking on moving to the next phase.
Yeah, that's exactly right. It's where you're placing your big bets, right? That's what we're trying to look at here. Right, live. It is as it sounds, right? But we've got to where we are. But that doesn't mean we stop being inquisitive about this. Is what we thought still performing the way we thought it is? Is it having the return we thought it is? Whatever that is, time, value, effort, whatever you're looking at there. Pivoting that A/B test and going, actually, we have that right. We're going to drop this one and move everybody to that. The updating of the product canvases, the lean canvas, business model canvas, right? What did you learn through this? What was the end part of that, right? going back to your story map and getting that updated, going, now we've solved that problem. It might not be green, but we've moved it significantly where it's now no longer a major problem that is stopping our customers re-enlisting with us. But again, how does it fit where we thought at the start? In reality, what's happening when you're on a product team is you've got a whole load of work that's on the go in the backlog, and people concentrate on that. What we need to do is have that, like it says, a dual track, right? You are discovering all the time and then dropping some of those things into the backlog to take forward as whether that's an alpha, beta, live, because you might need some capacity from the team to do that. While you're still discovering here, you're dropping in every so often, but you still have to obviously maintain that product track to deliver the features that you know they want and that maybe aren't as ambiguous as this. But the idea is it's from top down, you have to balance that backlog based off what you're doing through that DABL process, right? And the different points of that, some will be more mature than others, some will stop. But how do you get that out to the customer quickly once you've gone through that process and validate the solution fit and everything else like that with a market? And then, right, this is an example. I think, Lauren, you found this. The Google Glass. I mean, it looks futuristic, right? I look like some sort of cyborg if I wore that. And randomly, I did question. I heard some Google employees speak the other day about AI on the Google homepage as well, and that. Do they truly understand that problem space they're looking at, right? Because they said this thing was futuristic, it had all the tech. So from that feasibility point of view, and viability was probably ticked because they had billions of pounds to put into it. The feasibility, they can do everything they want with that, but did they really understand what people wanted to do with that? Was it solving a problem for people? Yes or no, right? And like I said, Lawrence got there in the summary. Yes, it's impressive from a technology point of view, but nobody went with it in the end in terms of catching on to that market. So you didn't get that product market fit there, and it went down the pan in that sense. But
I love that you use this example, Matt, because whenever I'm talking about the importance of the discovery, or actually more so in the context of IT leadership and understanding the business problem before you come with a solution, I knew a CIO at Specsavers who was obsessed with trying to make Google Glass something they could use.
Yeah.
Didn't know why they wanted to.
Yeah.
He just wanted to use it.
Happens all the time, right? We get a new bit of tech because it's in the Gartner quarter or something like that, and we must use it. Well, why? But yeah, it's an interesting one.
I think it's really interesting as well. I don't know if you've just seen, but Meta have just released their version of sunglasses with Kylie Jenner's involvement and design of the new product. And it's interesting that this concept, this tech, is now back on the plate in 2026 and seemingly has a little bit more of a warmer reception than it did back in 2013. So I guess it's sometimes that the tech is there and ready, but the consumer isn't.
Yeah. No, I think that's absolutely right. I can't remember. There's a film with, I think, Kiefer Sutherland in it, and they're on about, I think they've got a whole load of people in that they're giving business cases to try and see who they're going to hire. And one of them's about a fictional transporter system and transporting people across the world. And one of the guys goes, you're like a generation away from this being applicable to life because nobody wants to send their kid across the world like that, but they'll send it for shipping or something. And it's that sort of thing. Sometimes you might be ahead and have to park it, but then it's how do you come back with those ideas? How do you stay on that discovery bit that your customer's ready for that? Like for me, I still don't want to wear a set of glasses if I don't have to. So Facebook can have all they want, or Meta can have all they want. I don't want to wear that. It's the same with when we listened to the Google person the other day and putting AI at the top of the Google search. It was solving the problem, and the one they use is if you're a parent and your kids are tired, you want to be able to take them to a restaurant I think it was an airport where you've got allergies and all that. I like the thought that if that's me as a parent where I'm probably tired and trying to keep my kids happy, that I'm going to jump onto Google and wait for an AI response to give me the perfect idea of where I'm going to take them based off their level of grumpiness at the moment. Like that's not going to happen in reality of a problem space. So I think, yeah, it goes back to that age-old thing about understand your customer, understand where they're coming from. And I think one of the takeaways from Mind the Product the other day as well was, where are they going to be, right? look at what you're building now as product people. Are you building it for now or where the market was 5 and 10 years ago? Are you building it for where it's going to be in 5 years? And some of the things we see, people are still building for where the market was, not where it's going. So I think understanding that, and these are like prime examples of this, right? But yeah, I think it's just an important lesson to take away. And onto that, what are your key takeaways from today? In a couple of words, go for it. Take your pick, who goes first.
I think my main takeaway is, I suppose, don't be worried about putting unfinished things out there, and just be trying to get feedback as early on as possible. I think I certainly feel a lot of pressure from my kind of senior leadership, whereas like things need to be perfect. We can't put something in front of a customer if it's perfect, and that's really not agile. And also, like, well, who is it good for? Because if you build it wrong, it might be perfect, but it might be wrong.
Exactly. Yep. Good one. Who else? Danny.
I think for me, it's that potential difference between what people are saying that they want and what people actually want, and how valuable that differential is in making a solution. And I think that can be applied for me, especially coming from continuous improvement background, less so product, to anything really.
Yeah. Anybody else before we move on?
For me, it's the fun for the actual value that is, going to be good, rather than just listening to leaders and saying, I'm just going to do what you say. Actually saying, this is really what we should be.
Yeah. No, I agree. Right. Recap on that. Always start with discovery, right? Understand your customers. We've said that a number of times, but get the data, understand where they're coming from, where they're trying to be. Frame that problem space so there's less ambiguity every time you're doing that based off what you're understanding, right? But validate it. And alpha, down, quick, dirty, get it in front of somebody quickly to understand whether you're even taking a step in the right direction. That beta, start testing with that real audience, because you're trying to test the product market fit. Might be a brilliant idea, but it might only have a tiny market compared to something else that you might have a bigger market and spend your capacity pushing towards that. Live, measuring that, still getting the feedback, right? Updating things where you need to. Do you need to then pivot it to version 1.1 for something because there's another build on it, right? And then to say, this is an evidence-based process, right? Not a I feel process, like we said. When we're talking to stakeholders and senior leaders and everything else, what is the evidence that says we're going to take path A over path B, or we're still going to keep going with this, or we're going to park it, whatever that looks like, right? And a final thing, so as we sat there, I got to watch Professor Brian Cox last week at this Mind the Product, right? Which, honestly, a highlight. The guy's a genius, and it was humbling to sit and watch him. But one of the things he said was, you shouldn't want to be right, you should want to know. And I think that for us fits in with this, right? I don't want to be right going, I've built the best thing, like in terms of ticking boxes on my CV. I want to know why I started on that process, why my customer had the problem, what that was, and how I actually got through that with the tools and things like DABL to get the right thing out at the right time for the right people. But yeah, I think that's a really good quote to take away with. And finally, feedback. We've just talked about closing feedback loops, right? Do me a favor. I know there's only a few of us. Scan that QR code. Just give us feedback. There's a couple of questions. We're talking, there's a 3-4 questions. We're trying to do this to build the community, help people like yourself, hopefully impart some knowledge, wisdom, and stuff that we've learned that we might not do again, things like that. But help us out and just give us a bit of feedback, and we'll try and keep building this community to be stronger and wider going forward. And then any questions? I know we've only got a couple of minutes, but any questions from anybody there?
When's the next session, Matt?
Whenever I sent you across, Kevin. So I've sent all. I think we've sent them for the rest of the year now. Oh, it's in the chat.
July the 22nd. There you go.
We have Kevin, I think, will be or is sending out the events for that. We'll also post. We've planned the rest of the year out in terms of what's going to happen. Obviously, that's subject to change. one of the things I was trying to do at Meet the Product, I was a bit cheeky and I started to approach people to be guest speakers from various different places, whether that's a technology or because they're a leader in a certain area, or whether they've got something to say about that, or a thought leader. So we might swap some of those sessions, or as I say, add in if we can, but let's say subject change, but we're trying to give you a plan for what this looks like for the rest of the year and how it ties in and things like that. So yeah, hopefully that will come out soon, and we'll keep doing these, and as long as they're of value to people like yourself, right? Any last points, questions, or anything?
Not a question, but just thank you. This has been really interesting, really insightful. So thanks for sharing.
Yeah,
That's what we're
thank
here
you.
for. But yeah,
Yeah,
try and
great
take
session,
something
thank you.
away and try and do something. There's me challenge you, right? Try and take one bit of that away. Next week, do something with it about how you frame it, talk about it, try and impart this on somebody else, right? And if you get stuck, drop us a line. We're always here to try and help, right?
Thank you.
Thank you. Your feedback isn't working. Just scanned it.
Lauren?
I shall update that. I don't know why it's not working.
It was working.
So-
It's working for me. I've just submitted mine.
Scanning
So
for me.
there's the link, maybe.
Oh.
Yeah, it's working for me too.
Yeah, I've got it as
Great.
well.
Just me then.
So the visual representations of joining the feasibility, desirability, and viability are really insightful. So
Yeah.
it's really great way to visualize the intersection and how we are advancing through the phases.
Yeah.
And these are joining together.
Yeah, I think for me, I certainly, when I've done the product management bit, I use those three at the start of that process and go to say, is this truly what the customer wants? Should we build it? Can we build it? I always ask those questions because it, for backlog management, helps eradicate a few things straight away. And it's a really good tool because, I say, you can generally build anything you want, but then when you narrow that down to what you can build in your internal environment, you'll start and get rid of stuff straight away. But yeah, it's a really good tool to help get rid of some stuff and manage that backlog and priority based off that.
Yeah, I like it.
Compact. But yeah, I think go and try this out, right? If you do try this out, drop us a line if you've succeeded with something, or if it's changed something, or if you've found something that was working that you pushed forward, it's something that you stopped. I would love to hear what happens with this. And do me a favor as well, post on the product communities pages as well, because we're trying to build that as well. So if you've tried it, post on there and we can have a chat about it and other people can see and learn from each other. And apart from that, I know we're 2 minutes over, but you are all free to go.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you very
Thanks,
much.
No, Father, have a great one.